Okay, guys, let me quickly prepare the link here. I should be going live now. You may see me waiting for the live stream like this in the preview. Just have to set up the link in the Discord for everybody to join in. Okay. Should be all good. Yes, there we are. Okay, perfect. All right. Greedo, how are you doing? Etnak. Etanak. I'm sorry. The N and the C is throwing me off a little bit if I'm mispronouncing that. I hope, by the way, that everything is sounding good. I changed my microphone setup, so the microphone is now going into the new audio interface and no longer the old one. So let me know if there's any issues with the microphone, if it sounds off. I haven't been able to test it yet, because I've been very, very busy over the last few days. In fact, I'm a little bit tired today, because I spent like up until 3 o'clock yesterday editing, making videos and shorts and all of that stuff. And I probably have to do that tonight again, so it's not going to be fun. But yeah, it has to be done, and I have to prepare everything for the week that I'm taking off in Easter. I have a few interesting videos coming up, which are a little bit different from the usual. But yeah, we'll have to see if you enjoy those. All is chill. How are you doing? As I said, a little bit tired, but for the rest, I'm doing okay. I'm excited to get this mix ready. What I did with regards to the mix, for those that were there the last stream, is I fixed the vocals slightly. I'm happy with how they are. It's really hard to make this transition work between the riser, that is this guy, and this guy here, because you can hear how reverberated it gets over here. And I didn't want to lose that effect in the build-up, so I wanted to turn off the reverb here very, very quickly. But you can hear how it just goes from like very reverberated and washed out to the vocal. I would have loved for the vocal to come in a little bit earlier, but if I do that, it doesn't really have a nice transition between this element and this one over here. You can hear now it sounds like it's nicely going up in pitch here, and then it goes down again. Part of the washed out is coming from the pitch shifter, and the other part is coming from the reverb, which I'm using to mask some of the artifacts of the pitch shifter itself. I just ordered a new mic, arriving tomorrow. Nice. Which one did you order? Is it good, by the way? Is everything sounding okay in terms of the microphone? We are today on the sidechain, by the way, so it means that, as you can see, no headphones. I am listening through monitors, so anytime that the music is playing, you guys cannot hear me. No sound for us. That's very strange. Give me 2 seconds. Ah, is it because I am doing this? Now you guys should hear it, right? The music. That's so stupid. Sound is good on my end. Now you guys should be able to hear the music as well. The Lewitt LCT 240 Pro bundle. Is that the one that Dash reviewed and now uses? Sounds clear. Perfect. Okay, so now I can play the example again that I was talking about. This, how it's washing from here into here. So that's that. There's so like there's okay. So there's a. The music is audible too now. Perfect. Okay, so there is then a little bit of a problem that I have with my setup. For the longest time, I've been trying to organize my setup in a way that I can both record everything the way that I want to, have all of the audio channels that I need exactly set up in the way that I want to, as well as have the same thing for streaming. But the issue is, when I'm recording, I use the same OBS that I'm streaming for my camera. And I don't want the camera audio to also include desktop audio, because then it's even though I record desktop audio separately, it still gets messy trying to align things. It's not the end of the world, but it's annoying to get that to align properly. So what I was doing, which I can show you, is in here you have the settings for OBS, which track you want to send it to. So I turned off the desktop for track 1, which I can do over here, right? And this is so that you guys, so this is that it doesn't go into the recording of OBS, essentially, because I only record track 1, I don't use multiple tracks. But that means that it also turns it off for streaming, which is annoying, because obviously I don't want that. I still want you guys to hear the audio when I'm streaming. I just don't want that to be in the recording. And I already have 2 instances of OBS installed. So one is for the camera recording and the other one is for the desktop recording if I record my videos. Because I want that separate so that I can, you know, edit around with that and stuff like that. So that would mean if I want a setup that is like completely separated, what I could do is have another OBS install, one for streaming, one for camera recording, and one for my desktop recording, I guess. But then I would have 3 versions of OBS, which is a little bit, I guess, excessive. If I can get that to happen with 2, it would be nicer. Great sweep transition, thank you. Okay, let's get back into it. The other 2 things that we fixed are the snare. This thing over here, the snare now sounds nice. I did a little bit more than just re-render the snare over here. For those that remember, the mid snare was way too long. This thing over here, as you can see, it's now a little bit shorter. It used to extend up until like this point over here. So I kind of halved the timing and I made it even shorter over here. What I then did is I took the whole snare, I changed the EQ on it. So this EQ did not have this cut over here, which it now has. So I'll quickly let you hear the difference of what that sounds like in the mix. Just makes the snare a little bit thinner, as you can hear. And the second thing that I did is I added a gate to the snare. So what this thing is doing is it is essentially saying, okay, right after the transient, I want you to turn off the volume almost immediately, but keep in mind this release. So the volume is like slowly turning off over the course of 291 milliseconds, right? And I'll let you hear the difference of that as well. So you can hear it just completely tightens up the snare here. I really don't need that washout feeling that the snare has, so this is an easy way to fix that. The annoyance is that with the smaller snares over here, you can hear now without or with the gate, it doesn't trigger properly. So what I think we'll do is we'll just bypass the snare gate here whenever the high snare isn't playing and whenever this stuff is like lower volume and stuff like that. That is probably the easiest way to fix that. So bypass, and then on the snare we have to go here and we'll turn the bypass up here. Might need to do the same thing over here as well in the progressive drop. But at least here as well. Overall, it is sounding nice though. I'm going to lower my volume a little bit here. I don't want to be too loud. Might get the 440 Vida later. I think this is the pure. Might mistaken though. Okay, yeah. To be honest, I don't keep up with microphones too much. I'm happy with my $20 USB mic that I have now. Of course, in the future, it would be nice to have like a proper microphone so that maybe I would be able to record something and stuff like that. Not that the microphone that I have now is not good enough for that. You just need to work around the lack of quality that it has, the lack of headroom that it has. Essentially, you have to be really careful when recording with this microphone. And I think a little bit more of an expensive microphone would make it sound better. That would also count for the stream, of course, because now I can show this as well. The amount of processing that I have to do on the microphone to make it sound somewhat decent. Like if I turn all of this off, it should sound terrible. So now the microphone should sound very bad. I don't know. I'll watch the stream back, but it shouldn't sound great here. And this should sound a lot better when I'm speaking. At least that is why I have the all of the processing in there. It's nice, but it needs huge gain input. I used the issue that I had with not with my old mic, but with my old interface is that it wouldn't go all the way up to 0. In that you could turn up the mic input gain, and then at a certain point it would just clip, but it would clip at like -6, -7, which was very annoying because then I would always have to go in there and manually turn it up even more if I needed to. Now I have it in the new interface and I have all of the headroom available that I can. And I just have, again, the input gain so that I can tweak it if it ever clips. But I think I think that it's better now with just having more headroom and having more flexibility like that. We can hear you fine, but more importantly, your mix always crushes. Thank you. To be honest, listening to some reference material before the stream started, I'm not entirely happy with the way that it was. Another few things that I, for example, did is I turned the snare down a little bit. I turned down the top loops a little bit. It's all sounding a little bit washed here. I would like it to be a little bit sharper, essentially. I guess the top loop is my main issue. This stuff over here, for example. So this has a reverb on it. Does it really need that? I mean, it's nice. I might just point it to a little bit more early reflections, shorter length, and lower dry wet, so that it's a little bit less. So that it's just like a little bit of that. The other thing that I might want to do is take those lower mids that it has, the kind of resonance plucky bit of it, and compress that a bit more. We're going to try to tighten things up today, is essentially the goal here. Okay, I think that's good. This can use the same treatment, a little bit of compression. I think just broadband will do here. I like that, and I'll take some of the lower mids out a bit more. I'll put a new EQ on it. Just like a simple low shelf, I guess it's already that. I want to try a trick here. Let's do the same thing. We did this before, I believe, where we split up a signal into 2 parts so that we can process it differently. I have to check where that was. Here, I think. Yeah, I'll show the trick over here. We had this. So we had an LFO tool selecting this part, and then an LFO tool selecting the rest. I want to do the same thing again on this drum loop over here. So we will have to make a track to group this. This will be drum loop origin. And then we need 2 more tracks below it that we're going to send it to. Hello, there we are. So this goes here. We need this post effect, not post fader. And then I'm going to quickly take this volume, set this all the way down, and set this over here so that that carries over. And then this needs to go here as well, post fader. Okay. So this now isn't going to the master in and of itself. It's just going to these 2 tracks over here, meaning that we can use LFO tool to split up the signal time-wise. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the part that is on the kick and separate that from the rest. Probably don't want to do this so tightly. I probably want to do it like this so that we make sure that transients aren't being destroyed here. And then here we just do the opposite. So it goes down over here. And then right before it, we want it to go back up. Okay. So for this one, I want it to be brighter, I want it to stand out more, and I want it to be a little bit more reverberated so that it just gets a little bit stronger presence on the kick. Okay, so some reverb with mTurboVerb. Where is it? That just makes it slightly longer. And then I'll take some dynamics and compress that together. Because now we have this click here, which is a little bit annoying. I guess we can clip it, because I feel like I need quite a bit of gain to make it stand out enough. So we'll go free clip. Boost it in here maybe by 10 dB and then 10 dB lower again. Okay, perfect. So this is drum loop whopper. The kick one. Everything that's not on the kick, I guess. We don't need anything else there because this is really all that we wanted to do. Sometimes I might still talk when things are playing. Excuse me for that. I have to still get used to, again, the fact that I cannot really talk when it's playing because it cuts off my microphone. Slick, welcome to the stream. Thank you for sharing all your knowledge. You're welcome. I'm glad that it can be helpful. Dynacat, welcome as well. I didn't say welcome at the beginning. I'm sorry. Fabreti? I'm assuming that's Italian, and the 3 is just an E, so I'm hoping that I'm pronouncing that right. Mr. Spock and Mindbee, welcome as well. Hope you guys are all doing well. Did I miss anyone? John Hardis, welcome. Sorry, I said welcome to the first 2 people, and then I just completely ignored it. That's not nice of me. Anyway, I think I'll have to do another just listening throughout the whole thing. So I'll play the whole thing again. I think we might need to do some more cleaning up of the sequences, make that a little bit tighter as well. Because it feels like I'm washing things out a little bit too much. You guys can catch me on that if you say like, no, it's okay, or it's fine sounding like this, it's nice and roomy sounding. But I personally think that it could be a little bit tighter altogether. So I'm just going to here and grab my little notebook here. Dave Synth, welcome as well. I'm just going to listen, meaning that for the next few minutes I won't talk, and I'll just take notes of everything that I want to change. We are getting pretty close though. By the way, we are currently mixing into a temporary master. That's just so that because we're getting very close towards the end process, I can hear essentially how the mix is reacting to the actual master, right? And then I'll take the master off and do my final checks and then master it in a separate project. But I'm probably going to do that off stream.
that's one thing. It's a fun game. But where the real fruit is in the social aspect, where you get to meet people and play them a game and have a fun, competitive game. You do the best you can, but if you don't win, you won anyway. Because when you lose, you win too. Because if you're paying attention, you learn stuff.
Okay, nice. I still have a few things to fix. They're getting more and more to detail stuff, like very, very small things. There's just like a few aesthetical things that I also want to change. So technically the track is getting very close to finished, which is promising. Yeah, Fabretrin is Italian, very nice. That means that I pronounce it properly at least. Very strong layer stack for the intro and transition into the initial drop is unique. You're adding so much to this genre, in my opinion. I like that. Thank you. Thank you very much. There is something that I want to change about the stack, and that is that I want this thing to come through more. I believe it's this thing, right? Yes, it's this one. I want that wobble to come through more as the drop or as the intro progresses. So we're just going to do like a small volume automation onto it. Everybody else really liking the track, so that's very nice. Is the name of this track a secret right now, or will you reveal it when it's done? Right now, it's not really a secret. I can reveal the name of it. It's called The Game of Life. And the reason for that is it all has to do with this vocal over here talking about the game, right? And how it implements onto life. I got this from, I believe, some kind of chess video on YouTube or something like that. And it just had this guy like sitting in the park, one of those New York chess players, talking about what they liked about chess, and this part came through it, and I was like, I can sample that. That is like ambiguous enough that people don't immediately associate it with chess, which is kind of what you want for a vocal like this. You don't want it to have too strong of one topic when it comes to psytrance vocals, so that people can interpret for themselves how it relates to them, essentially. But the whole idea is, yeah, this is a track about life and how it's a game and how you have to play it yourself. That's why it also talks about believing and stuff like that. The only vocal that is a little bit out of there is this one over here, and this is just to break it up going into the more crazier sections when some of the synths start to play. Honestly, I didn't really notice that the sequences themselves needed much work, which is a good thing, of course. So yeah, I'm just going to start to implement these things, and then we should be pretty close to done. There was also one thing that I noticed here when I was initially listening, and that probably has to do with the way that it's mastered right now. But the first kick of this part felt very, very loud. Let's see if that's still the case or if I just heard something strange. Yeah, it kind of goes dum 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 dum. You know what I mean? You can even see it on the analyzer. I think that has to do with boost, the way that boost is set up right now, even though we have a fairly slow attack. Let's see what happens if I set it even faster. Is it boost that is doing this? It most certainly is. So this is a boost issue, I guess. Let's see if I can fix that. This is, I think this is a limiter issue in general. There's more limiters that do this kind of thing, where if it's been really quiet for a while and then the transient hits, it makes the first transient sound a little bit louder than the rest of them, because the limiter is already acting when it goes to the next transients. It feels less now. Maybe it's the emphasis that it's doing. Yeah, you can hear the first one distorts heavily. So the emphasis, I guess in a mastering sense, you want the emphasis on 0, so it doesn't have that effect where the first transient gets hit like that. I do want to try out the focus at 100%, because this is interesting stuff. I'll fine-tune that in the final master, but I think I'm going to leave it at 50 now. I like that this adds more, it seems to add more depth to the track, in that the kick isn't just the most frontal part. It's feeling like it's a little bit drowned out. But I'm thinking that if you leave it at 100, it's going to be too much of an effect. So that's why like 50 is probably a good place to leave it for now. And then in the mastering stage, I'll obviously fine-tune all of that. As I said, I do that in a different project. There's a whole line of tweaking and EQing and getting the spectral balance closer to what I want before it's like fine, before it's ready to get the final limiter on there. So my master chain does look like this. There's just another EQ. So the EQ is let me find it. Mix. BX Digital Mix. I believe this is the one. Yeah. So this is the EQ that. So my master chain would look something like this, right? So we have the Shadow Hills compressor doing a little bit of gluing on both of the compressor stages here. We have the free clip for any removal of any harsh peaks. As you can see, I'm boosting it into it and then immediately turning it down by like roughly the same amount. And then I'll EQ it to get the spectral balance right. And then the final thing is the boost over here, to get the loudness that you want from your track. But for now, this can be removed here. It's Devious Machines. Yeah, it's a very nice plugin. I talked about this before. This is they sponsored me before my break of YouTube, I think. And ever since then, it has been my mastering compressor for the longest time. I did notice that the problem that we had before with the emphasis, that happens in a few of my tracks. I believe Virtual Reality has the same issue, where the first kick is louder than the rest. And I always thought that is just how the mastering limiter is going to work. Because what I thought would happen is, okay, it's made like really silent over here. You can see like this is the production waveform, but the mix waveform is going to look the same. There's not much happening over here. So I thought that what it would do is it would be like very, very quiet, and then it suddenly had to work very hard. So the limiter couldn't really catch up to that without distorting, because it's trying to be like a very clean form of limiting. I just thought that is what would naturally happen. But now knowing that it's just because of the emphasis, that is something that I can look out for, that you want the emphasis always to turn down. To be honest, I should just set up a default setup for this, like a default preset maybe, because I always need to set it to oversample with true peak, and I always turn the release up, but I guess this is a good way to just start. Can I do that in here? Can I save a preset as default? Save as default preset. Yes, perfect. Default. So now, every time that I open it up, it shouldn't come with any emphasis, and I should not have that problem. Yeah, okay, perfect. I'll have to see if that's also the case inside of Ableton, otherwise I would have to change it there, because that is where I do my mastering. I export again from here, and then I do the final master inside of Ableton. To be honest, I don't know why. I could do it in here, I could do it in Ableton. It doesn't really matter. I just need the track to put effects on. I guess I'm just a little bit faster inside of Ableton with finding all of the plugins with the little menu thing. Although, funnily enough, Boost doesn't work with the menu, because there's presets from EQs or something like that it finds before it finds Boost. So it loads those instead of this thing. But that doesn't really matter. Let's get into the things that I want to change. The first thing is, as I said, that pad in the intro, which is this thing over here. Okay, so I'll get myself a volume here. This is not the right one. This is the annoying one. You want the volume band smoother here, because this just has a normal dB readout. So I can set this to 0, and then I can just volume in dB here. I guess from here we just wanted to go down maybe like 5 dB back to where it was originally. Here, I think, is it this one? This thing over here. I think this is just a little bit too loud still. I don't know in the rest of the track. Maybe we'll have to turn it down just there. I do think a little bit lower on here would still be nicer. So again, the volume over here, you have to move this, set it back to 0, and then it does say last touch, but I do believe you have to move it before it registers. You cannot just click on the parameter and have it work. In this case, all we need to do is just get this maybe 5 dB off, 5 dB more. By the way, now that Davey is here, you're a Reaper user, right? I have this, I guess not really a problem, but this annoyance with Reaper, and knowing its customizability, you probably know if this is possible, but anytime I create an automation clip, or an automation lane, sorry, like an envelope lane, I guess is the term in Reaper, what it does is automatically adds a point at the start, right here. And that means that anytime I want to have a parameter, say, do like this, where I want, on one side, I want a parameter to be lower, and on the other side, I want it to be higher, for example, like this, I would always need to go back in here and move this up again. Whereas if you don't have a point here, you can just move this up and down and the line will stay flat. Is there a way that I can make it so that any automation lane that I make doesn't come with a starting point? It just gives me a flat line at the value that the parameter is when I make the automation lane, and then I can just start drawing without it having a starting point? Is there a way to do that? You are a Reaper user, right? I am not misremembering here, right? Because otherwise that would be embarrassing if I do. I guess I can find this kind of stuff out after the stream as well, but this is why I have chatters, so that they can solve my problems. A little bit of snack time for me. This is fixed. Good question. Thanks. Because there's probably a setting for it, right? But if you go into preferences, I mean, the list of things that you can customize in here before I actually find this kind of stuff. Maybe it is in here. So show new envelopes, separated envelope lanes. This does have to do with the envelope. But it might be in here, it might be in here. When recording automation and stop at additional point before edit points. This has to do with recording it. Editing behavior. It can be in there. It may be like an action or a different thing entirely. There's just so many menus inside of Reaper. It's the kind of software that would take years to learn if you work with it every day. And I work with it like once every 2 months, maybe. Like a few days. Found it. Oh, nice. Where is it? Let's see. I'm assuming that I have to be somewhere in here with the envelope stuff. There's probably much more quality of life settings that I don't even know about. Like the fact that the other day I complained about that you weren't able to resize all of the tracks together, and then you hold control and it resizes all of the tracks together. Automation, there's an option add point before edit position. Add point before edit position. Is it, you mean this one over here with the recording thing? So here. So now if I make, let's quickly find the parameter to let's say I make another volume here, just for a test, right? If I set this back here and now go to this volume here, it still makes a point here. Right, so this, as you can see, it's still a point over here. I mean, it's not the end of the world. I just know that whenever I have a point, I just need to go here. I put in my first point, I delete this one, and like then it's okay. Right, like I can just do this and make the edit that I wanted to. It's just you have to sometimes scroll to the beginning of the project, and that takes like 5 seconds. It's not the greatest time loss that I probably have during my mixing stage. Editing behavior. Preferences. Am I just not seeing things here then? Because I have this one. When recording, automation and stopped. In editing behavior. If no items are selected, some split, trim, delete actions affect all items at the cursor. I also don't want that. That's nice, because that has messed me up in the past before, where suddenly I had like all of my files split halfway in between, because I, instead of Control S to save, I just hit S and it splits the tracks and stuff like that. Gets that one. Might test it. Checking. Daar krijg ik een punt op van. It's all the little things that you have to do that just sometimes take a little bit of extra time, that throughout the mixing process add up or become an annoyance and get you out of your flow. So whenever I have the capacity to fix that, or to change my approach, I guess, or to change any of the settings that I'm using, it is nice that I that you then do that, so that you don't have any issues in the future with that. Because it's, as I said, it's an annoyance, but it's not more than that, right? Like it doesn't really hinder you. For example, one of the things that did hinder me, for example, is before I knew that you could go in here, item properties, and change the gain over here, I would have volumes on all of the tracks, and that meant that anytime I bypassed through here, the track would get louder by 8 dB. That is something that, once I learned that you were able to do here, that like actually sped up my workflow, because A/Bing stuff was much faster, and you could A/B immediately all of the effects on and off. Whereas normally what I would have to do is then go in here and go like tick, 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 and then the volume would be here, and I would leave that on. But now that's fixed, so now that's much better. Check no point, it's gone. I'm thinking I'm just missing something. So this is already set to do not add points. I don't think it will be in here. Automation. When adding volume pen envelopes, apply trim to envelope and reset trim. Never. Yeah, okay, so this is also something that I changed. What this does is it means that the volume envelope that you apply, if you want to apply that to the fader, it will always start from 0, and it will leave the fader alone. So it doesn't take the fader volume and integrate that into the envelope. Looks like it's just when you record automation, not when you just draw some point. Yeah, that's what I thought. It will still give you the points in the beginning, But that's okay. That's okay. If it's not there, it's, as I said, it's not a huge issue, I guess. I want to try this one at -5 instead of -7 because I felt like it was getting a little bit behind in my mix now. I want this thing to be a bit more aggressive. Sounding a bit too weak. We can make what's the distortion pedals that I have from Waves? Waves has a bunch of pedal emulations that I have. These MDMX ones, which are really nice. I want the overdrive, which is the least aggressive one, I guess. You can hear how it's already messing up the dynamics completely. Let's see if we can bring some of that back. I want this to be like a mild version of it. HD, we want that on. Let's try type differently. Yeah, that's really messing things up. I still want to keep the dynamics of it. Maybe I should use the M saturator because that can reintroduce dynamics. This one here. It has the compander thing here, which compresses and expands it into the distortion. I mean, it's still making it louder. Let's try this. That's nice. Now you can actually hear the saturation. So this automatic gain compensation takes into account RMS, I guess, loudness, not peak level, which is what I was matching here. That's great. Sounds like in the intro it needs more volume than in the drop, which is surprising because here it's battling with the kick and bass. You would suspect that here it would have an easier time coming through, but I feel like it's still in the background in here. Maybe it's just too reverberated. And with all of the processing that I'm doing, I'm taking out too much stuff. it's sounding okay now in the drop. I would just like it to come out more in the intro. Top of the day to you, lads. Infrashell, thank you very much. Would automation items help? Automation items. Always record to automation items. I have no idea what this is. Is this different? Is an automation different from an envelope? Because this, I think, is called envelopes when you go into trim. Because here it always says track envelopes. But it also says automation mode. So is this an envelope or an automation? I would assume that this would be like an automation. I associate envelopes more with like synthesis and short time stuff. Whereas the automation is, it's supposed to go over the whole track. Right click the automation lane. Let's make a dummy before I mess something up again. So let's set this to 0. And then I make a volume thing here. What I would want is this either to open without any points, or can I just remove? No. So that just removes the whole thing. Remove only the points from it. This is the recording mode. This is for if you have like a fader controller thing, like an external controller, which a lot of people use. That might actually be a nice investment, because it might not be good to have the Launch Control XL do that. Although, maybe the Launch Control XL does work for that kind of thing. There are those that are motorized and automatically, it's much more integrated with a DAW like this. I don't know if this has it. Perhaps an automated envelope. Have you checked out Arturio's Coldfire, one of the more versatile distortion plugins I've come across? There's a lot more than just distortion from mild to wild. I haven't really tried a lot of saturation. I'm still looking for the all-around saturator tool. I might just get Saturn for that kind of thing. Right, the FabFilter one. Because that is like a very versatile tool. It also does the multiband and stuff. And to be honest, I'm happy with what M-Saturator does. But for a Melda plugin, it feels like you don't have a lot of control. Funny enough. It feels like the saturator could be a little bit better. Maybe I need to experiment more with the other one, which is the Polysaturator. This looks really strange as well. But I believe here you just draw in the harmonics that you actually want to gain from the main harmonics that you're saturating. Which is an interesting idea as well. I need something that I can just quickly throw on there and test a whole bunch of different ones. I feel like the ones that I'm getting from here don't really get me the tone that I want. At least I've not really found a setting that is really particularly useful. But now, in this particular case, it did seem to do something cool. In that it made it a lot grittier. What we could maybe try here, to make it a bit more dynamic. Because this is just 16-note stuff. Like if I turn this off, it's not really more dynamic. But getting a little bit of that oomph back in there would be nice. Something like that. But here you can hear how strong everything is, I guess. Is it loud as well? I believe it was a little bit on the loud side too. the intro. So maybe pads like this here, the whole intro pad thing. This one may be a bit on the loud side. Now this is grabbing a lot more attention. What I can do is, I believe I'm already like filtering it out. I can lower the volume here as well a little bit more. So that again, it stands out a little bit more. This is the balancing act, right? If I just click it, does it still say last touch now? Because here it says touched. Yes, perfect. And I don't have to edit it actually. That's nice. Okay, so we go from here. We can just go down here. Would be nice if I have a little bit more to work with. This is the actual volume, right? That I'm reading out here, the -6, -7. Yes, perfect. Wait, it says -7.2 here and -6.8 here. So this is not the same then. I mean, -7 dB would be okay, I guess. Yeah, perfect. Now we're getting a nice space for that particular sound to sit in. Exactly what I want. Saturn 1 and 2 are great. It is indeed funny for Melda plugin. They're more well known for 15 layers underneath the GUI. In general, they're known for being you're very hands-on with all of the things that you can tweak. The example that I always like to bring up is M-Turbo Reverb over here. Like you have the presets, which is your first layer, right? And you just get the preset that you want. Then within the preset, you have your second layer of the exact tonality of that preset. This changes very little. I rarely hear go through this and make judgments on this, but if you want, sometimes you want a little bit of a brighter version of that same reverb, as opposed to just a completely different reverb. This is where you will find it, by looking at these other things here. And then even then, if you want more stuff, like here you have all of the controls that you need to dial in basically the exact reverb that you want. But if you want even more control, you can go in here, and this is wild what is happening here. You can tweak each individual first reflection that is happening. You can write your own formulas over here. There's the algorithm designer and parameters and all that mess. And you have your dynamics part. You have an extra EQ. You have a mid-side EQ. You have, I don't know. This is, it goes really deep. I was hoping that they would have at least a similar kind of thing for their saturator, where you just have, right now what it feels like is that we only have this part of the saturator, right? In the saturator that is on the thing, this one, it only feels like you can tweak, you can choose from these things here. I was hoping that there would be another layer below that. I guess that may be the harmonics here, but I've never really found any good sounds coming from this. Maybe this is one of the plugins that he is developing, because he is constantly adding new stuff to the bundle as well, which is really nice. Recently he added the M-Center thing. This stuff, which per frequency allows you to set how wide a sound is. This was not something that you were able to do, at least not easily. You can do it in M-Stereo Processor. this, but you only have 4 bands, so you have control over the width of 4 bands. Here you have control over the width of all of the different frequencies, which is really cool. And this is spectral stuff, so there's like advanced stuff that you can do with it, smoothing and all of that stuff. So this is a great plugin. I need to work with, or I need to experiment with this more. But I'm hoping that maybe for the saturator he will do like a similar kind of thing where you may be able to draw in particular shapes, or you're able to draw in specifically for each frequency how much saturation you want, something like that. That would be really nice. M-Center is the newest, yes. Maybe using MXXX. I can try MXXX and just kind of create my own presets for like a proper saturator. Because MXXX, that is another one of those hugely powerful tools that I need to dive in more. But yeah, that could work. That could be an option. Okay, so we got that intro plug synth fixed. Now I want to go into the fill here. It feels very loud here. It's not as loud as the drop itself, but I think it could be a little bit lower. So the old kicks, and these are 2 dB below it. What if I go with -4 on these? I don't remember how they were in the original project. Maybe I should look at that, because that has an influence, because within here, I'll have kicks that are different levels still, right? So this is louder than this one over here, for example. So for example, here it won't be a problem, the volume, but in this part it will be. I think this could be a little bit lower. We can go to maybe -11. I want that thing, the scratching thing, to be a bit quieter as well. Overall, I'm just trying to lower the fill here. And now we should be good. Maybe the synth here. What we could do is lower the volume on the synth. It usually doesn't sound good if you do that. Wait, where is it? Show last, volume, there. If you lower the volume on the synth in here and then just massively turn that up, but I think in this case it will. See, now I have to go to here and just do that. And now we should be good. We can go like this. I'll have to see how much that actually is. -4.8. So it is the right readout. That's strange. I like the effect that we're getting. It's just a little bit too extreme right now. So I'm going to probably go to maybe 2 dB here. Like this. That sounds nice. That's what I want here. M-Center is a multi-band stereo imager. It is a spectral stereo imager. So the difference is that instead of for 4 bands of frequency, you can set the width for every frequency. And it uses an FFT to convert into spectral information, then does its processing, and then FFTs back into the actual sound. Or IFFT if you want to be pedantic, I guess. But what that means is that there's essentially a calculation. Did the stream freeze, or is that just me? Okay. Now it's saying that I have good connection again. Let's see what happens. I cannot see it yet on the preview. But this was a wild connection drop. It's been a while since we had this kind of strange connection issue where it lasts for so long. Because normally it takes like 10 seconds for it to get back. Am I back, by the way? Because I still cannot see myself in the preview. Let me check on phone if I'm back here. The chat is still catching up. I cannot type on my phone thing. You're up and running again. Perfect. Hearing you clearly. Perfect. Everything is a little bit weird now. What was I talking about? I don't even remember. Oh yeah, spectral stuff. What a spectral thing is doing. So what mCenter does, I was going to use this for conversations, but now this is ruined. I'll have to see if I can edit this together. So what mCenter does and any spectral effect, what that does is instead of just looking at the original waveform and looking at those individual points, right, these points over here, it will take an FFT to basically calculate all of the sine waves that make up this waveform. And then you can treat each sine wave individually. That's how you can edit all of the frequencies. That's how you can get mCenter, like a graph like this, where you can edit each individual frequency, and for every frequency, it will do a different thing to the width. Because it literally just takes out all of the individual frequencies one at a time, and it then has a list of frequencies that it can apply the processing to, as opposed to doing it to the actual audio signal. So anytime you're working in some kind of spectral way, that is what it's doing. And there are some negatives to that, by the way. That's not just like a free process. It smears out transients. It does weird stuff to vocals. It can do weird stuff when you're like pitch shifting with spectral tools. Like mTransformer is also a spectral tool, right? mTransformer, I like to use this for pitch shifts on things that I cannot pitch shift in MIDI. But you can see this is also a spectral thing because, again, you have control over each individual frequency. I'm paranoid now with the connection. So this also does the spectral thing, as you can see over here, and you have to have like a buffer size, the window resolution. There's a stage of windowing before you actually get to convert, because theoretically, any spectral process is based on the Fourier transform, which makes the assumption that all of your signals are infinitely long for the calculation. So any spectral that you're using in real life, in a practical sense, is just an approximation of that. Because obviously we don't have actual infinite signals in the real world. We just have the signal that is coming in to the plugin, and it will just take a buffer of a certain amount of points, and it will try to approximate the Fourier transform of that, and then approximate back when it's done with its process, converting and doing whatever it needs to do. So all of those processes introduces smearing of transient, introduces, as I said, it can sound weird when you're pitching stuff up or down. It can create a whole bunch of mess. There's always a kind of mess that it can create if you're doing that. And that is one of the reasons, I guess, which I didn't mention last time when we talked about it, why I don't really use plugins like Soothe, because that's also a spectral process, as far as I know, in the same way that Spectral Dynamics is. In this case, the spectral part is it creates all of the individual sine waves, and then you have control over how you want to compress those sine waves. With the other one, with mTransformer, what we saw is that you're able to remap those sine waves. So you can take a sine wave that is playing at 500 Hz and say, okay, I want you to play at 700 Hz. And then with the mCenter, the one that is out now, the newer one, you're able to, for each sine wave, essentially determine the stereo wave of that. So I guess the phase difference between the left and the right channel. You're still here. Nice. Perfect. I didn't massively drop in viewers, so that's not good. I'm hoping that this is not the same connection issue that we had. When was it? Like last October, where people would also have issue getting into the stream. That's one of my main worries anytime I drop connection, is that people are excited to join my stream. They want to talk to me, they want to interact with me, and then they're unable to join because of some connection issue. There has been a glitch inside of YouTube. Maybe I should talk about this, because this, I think, at least I find this interesting. There was a glitch on YouTube starting the 25th, late at night at 11, where real-time views wouldn't be counted properly. For those that don't know, what can I show here? Let me just quickly grab this over here. How can I show this without showing what I cannot show? There's parts of the YouTube thing that I'm not allowed to show. Anything with money in there, I cannot show. Okay, this opens up there, then I can quickly show that. We have real-time view information inside of YouTube. So keep canvas size. Give me 2 seconds, I'll be able to show it. This is what we get in terms of real-time information. Over here. So this is the 48-hour real-time information. The last 48 hours, all of the views that I'm getting over the last 48 hours, broken down per hour. I can also break down the last hour of views, broken down per minute. So I can see minute to minute how many views my videos get, which is too much information, to be honest. You never really use it, unless you're trying to figure out, I guess, the immediate performance of a short that you're posting, what it's doing in its first hour. Then it's useful, so that you can make a guess on how the short will perform during the day, because the first hour performance kind of indicates what it's going to do the rest of the day in terms of performance. So this is what was broken since the 25th. And ever since the 25th, what happened was it really hit the label channel, right? The Eclipse Sound Syndicate channel. And I can show you in here as well. Again, I have to make a print screen because I don't want to show everything here. I can just show this part. So this is the real-time views of the label channel. This is what it looked like, where before we were getting decent amount of views, specifically on Subject Ultra Track. You can see this is 11 o'clock, the first one that went down, and then it hasn't recovered since. And even up until this point right now, it hasn't recovered to going back like this. So those kind of issues, when those happen, it shows that there's like something wrong with the YouTube server. And anytime there is something like that, I get a little bit worried. Anytime there's a connection issue with my stream, anytime there's stuff like this happening, I get worried that whenever I stream, that people don't get into the stream and that they get excited to join the stream and then cannot have the viewing experience that they want. I've mentioned this many times before, my connection issues, because it's a recurring theme. It should be hopefully all solved by September, when I get a new apartment, and then I get into then I can just get fiber cable, and then at least from my side, internet issue wise, it should be all good. Then the only reason why we could have connection issues if there's stuff happening on the YouTube side or at individual people's side, but that's completely out of my control. The same is true with YouTube. And to be honest, it feels like even the connection issues that I have now are completely out of my control, because it happens sporadically, and sometimes it's just 10 seconds that I drop out. Today we had a dropout of a few minutes, and I had to restart everything. It's very strange whenever it happens. I don't know why it happens, and I don't know what I can do about it, as I said. Otherwise, I would have done something about it. Let's get back into it. We're working on this fill over here, the loudness of this fill. I feel like the zoom down here is a little bit on the loud side, which is, I think, this one. Nope, It's this thing. It's still showing in my preview that it's buffering, but that sometimes just completely stops working. Okay, that is just some sidechaining. I'm not getting the pluck that I want from this sound right now. I want it to be tack tack a little bit more. I guess that is in here. This is shaping it a bit more, so that is good. We can just add transient MB and just transient shape like the higher part. I left this on. Not really getting... How else would we do this? It's not detecting all of the transients. Accurate, maybe. Tack, 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 tack. It's still not detecting all of them. Do you hear how it's missing a few now? Let's try with LFO because I can just make it a bar long and then manually draw in the transients that I want to enhance. I'll have to set this to 16, I guess. I'm just exaggerating the effect right now. I'm just trying to get all of the transients detected, essentially, because we're basically making our own transient shaper, but because it's just a repeating bar, it will always do the same, so we can just draw in the transients that we want. So this last one is over here. Okay, that makes it a little bit more dynamic, which is nice. And then what I can do is just turn it down for the part where it slows down. Crossover frequency. No, that's not what I want. The depth. LFO depth here. In here, I want this a little bit lower in volume. So we'll do that as well. Minus 5.4 on the both of them here, I guess. That's nice. Everybody discussing plugins in the chat. Sorry if I'm not keeping up with the chat. I'm trying to focus a little bit as well. Well, where's Ableton? Ableton is not the DAW that I'm using for mixing. In fact, I use Reaper for mixing because it's much easier to use for mixing, especially because it just handles all of the WAV files that you see in here. So every line is a WAV file, which is maybe like 150 megabytes. So the whole project, in terms of the amount of WAV files that are in here, is like over 10 gigabytes. And Ableton just struggles opening that up because it's not designed for that. And Reaper is. Reaper has like very smart ways of reading WAV files. I don't even know what kind of magic it is using, because when you're actually playing, it's using less CPU than if you were to play it inside of Ableton. And it's not reading from the disk, as far as I can tell. It's just either it's loaded inside of RAM, but also the RAM usage of Reaper is very, very low. And when I just look into the task manager, it doesn't spike high with the reading from disk, which is normally the bottleneck, right? When you're playing all those many files, in that it literally physically cannot keep up with the amount of RAM that it's or with the bandwidth of the disk. So the playback is faster than how fast it can read all of the files from the disk. But so there's some kind of black magic going on inside of Reaper. I have no idea how it reads the files, but it does, and it just works. So that's nice. There was something else that I heard in here, but now I forgot. This is why I want to keep focused. It was, no, I remember. It's the sequences in here. So there's a reverb on here, which is too big, too boxy, too bass heavy. Just too long in general. Does this even need reverb? It already has a little bit. Just add like a nice layer on it. It does feel like it's a little bit dry in the beginning. Hello Dash, welcome. Waldek, welcome as well. How are you doing? You're a good projector. Keep doing what you're doing. I'll do, yes. And every once in a while, I'll just look over, and if there's interesting stuff that I want to talk about, I'll do it. Yeah. Reaper handles CPU and RAM better than others. Yeah, but from a technical perspective, I have no idea how it does that. So for those that don't know, I do have a programming in like a background in programming, in that I have a bachelor's degree in computer science. So I know a little bit about how stuff like file reading and all of that stuff works. And from everything that I know, you either load all of the files into RAM first, and then you can play them back from the RAM, so you don't have the issue of the disk being a bottleneck. That would mean that Reaper, for a project, would use 10 gigabytes plus in RAM, which currently it's probably not doing. Let's see here. Reaper, 1.6 megabytes. So that's not, it's not loading all of the files in RAM, because it's using less RAM than all of the files combined would weigh on disk. So that would mean that it would read them from the disk. But if I play, my disk usage also doesn't go up. go out of the task manager again before I ruin something. But it's neither using RAM nor is it reading from the disk. So where are the files? What is happening? Right? I have no idea. There must be some really clever algorithm going on. Maybe that it's only loading the parts of the file into RAM which aren't silent, right? Because you can kind of just discard the silence over here. So maybe it's just loading this part over here into RAM in a certain way. I have no idea. I have no idea how you would accomplish that. I'm not really a fan of the reverb that I have going on here. It feels like it's rising up. I guess you can almost see it in the waveform here. It plays and then it goes zook. Yeah, it feels very strong and bloated. It's not like I'm compressing it or something like that, which is usually what would happen if you compress a reverb. In that the reverb kind of rises up because it no longer triggers the compression and then your makeup gain makes it louder. But in this case, that's not happening. So there's something maybe wrong in just the production side. Maybe I'll fix that, depending on how it translates onto other systems and that kind of stuff and how it translates into the master. For now, I guess it's decent enough that I can live with it. I don't want to go back in another time and have to re-render files and all of that stuff, to be honest. At some point, you just have to say, okay, I'm done. Reaper can even make waves offline. Yeah, if I move out of Reaper, it disables all of the waves, and you can go in here, and then it goes offline. So it's not using it's not reading something now or something like that. I have no idea what that means. It is very, very intelligent, and that is the reason why you would use this for mixing, is because it's just much smoother of a mixing experience. You never have any buffering issues or something like that. At least I've never found myself in any trouble with buffering or stuff like that inside of Reaper. To be fair, Projector Task Manager isn't the best way to see what the computer is actually doing. It does give a good estimate. At least it should give you a decent enough estimate of what it is doing. Like if it's loading 10 gigabytes of WAV files into RAM, you should be able to see that in the RAM usage. The RAM usage shouldn't be 1.5 gigabytes. It should still say around 10 gigabytes. It will not be exactly precise, but it should get close. And if you're reading from the disk, to read all of these files, I would expect at least like 40 megabits, whatever the measurement term is that it uses. I believe megabits, but that doesn't really matter. You should at least see disk usage at that point. And we saw 0.1%, which also suggests that it's not actually reading from the disk at this point. My best bet is that it's actually like a clever algorithm that, as I said, just discards all of the silence and only loads these parts into RAM over here. The parts that actually contain like musical information. So all of this gets discarded and it just loads the parts that are actually audio. Reaper and Cubase create an analysis file and buffer linearly depending on the project. Ableton load the entire file because of its way non-linearity in the clip view, jumping in between parts, etc. Aha! It creates an analysis file, yeah. But I mean, the playback still has to happen. Because isn't analysis file is just showing you the peaks, right? Or is that actually like... I guess that might be what is just saving the parts that are interesting, that aren't silent. Yeah, that could be the case. To be honest, it's not really that interesting. It just works, and that's all you need, right? It is interesting if you have like a technical background and you're interested in that kind of thing. But when I'm just mixing, that's not really what I'm interested in. What I'm then interested in is that it just works. So filter 3 too loud. We have fixed that. I've written down overall kick and bass up. But to be honest, which would mean I would turn the rest down, because my kick and bass, I don't want it to go up. I want then the rest to go down, compensating. But to be honest, I don't really hear it now anymore. Like, it's not like this part feels that the kick and bass is particularly clocked up. But maybe the case is that we could use a little bit of extra sidechaining on the sequences. I thought we had already set that up, but maybe that's for the one-shots. Where do we have... We did use some sidechaining somewhere, didn't we? Where does the kick go? Kick. Did we not set any sidechaining up here in this project? I guess not. Okay. I'll route the kick to the sequences and to the one-shots. And then we can just slightly duck the transient out of the way. I swore that I set up some sidechaining in here. Well, I guess not. We'll go sequences. 3 and 4. And then we'll send it to one-shots. 3 and 4. We do have a pad in the drop, I believe. Yes, as well. Oh, I want to go back to the kick, and I just want to scroll down so that I can just map it here. So we're gonna go to the pads here. And then for good measure, I'll also go to the effects. I don't know if I'm going to use all of these, if I need to sidechain the effects or something like that. I'll just set it up so that I have it. Maybe this is something, I usually don't start with a kick track in the template, but maybe that is something that I could take into account so that I actually have it in the template already set up. Just for ease of access. But what I want to do is sidechain here. Dynamics. That it just adds a little bit of clarity. We copy that and we send that over here. I will do the same on the pads here. I'm not sure if I'm going to do the same on the... I might do the same on the effects. Let's just see how, if I do it on everything, how it will sound. Is there an easy way that I can now toggle all 4 of these effects? Like link them maybe to one parameter? There is such a thing as parameter linking, right? I can... In here, link parameters, is there a way to do that? MIDI link. Learn. What I essentially want to do is I want to be able to, with one button, turn all of the sidechaining that I just set up. So this M Dynamics, this M Dynamics over here, and then the one that is on the pads and the one that is on the effects. I would like to be able to hear what it sounds like bypassing all of them and unbypassing them. Maybe there's a way that I can do that from the kick, because they are all getting the same signal from the kick channel. So is there a way that I can maybe bypass all 4 of these here quickly? This is the reason why I like streaming, because if I have these kind of questions, I can just ask them, and there will be Reaper users that know much more about how to do this. You can make chains in Reaper like racks. I'm not sure. I don't think that it natively has like a wrapper plugin that you can then build other plugins into. It's not really meant for that. Because in a mixing context, you wouldn't really use that, I think. Like normally you just stack your plugins on top of everything and you make sends and you make return tracks and that kind of stuff. And that is all that you see over here. That is all that you have control over. But even for this thing, I don't need a rack to do that because it's on 4 different tracks anyway, right? So this is on its own track. This is the sidechaining for one of them. And then the next sidechaining is over here. So that would be on a different track. So I couldn't make that into one individual rack, I don't think. What happens if I go here and then I check out last touch parameter here? Enable parameter modulation. Link from MIDI or effects parameter. I can link it on its own track, I think. So I can link it to any other parameter in here. But can I link it to a different track? Because this is what Dan Worrell uses if he links parameters. If he links input gain and output gain in like a saturator or something. There's another view for the effects channels, I'm sure. And then you can multi-select and bypass like that. I have the effect, all of the effects over here. I have individual effects over here. The issue is, I think, that we need to link parameters between multiple different tracks. Containers. Aha. That is in version 7, which is what I'm on. Version 7.03. Do I need to do a container for that then? Honestly, I would think that this use case that I'm asking for is something that everybody would, that is like very common, right? Where you have 4 plugins on 4 different tracks, but all doing the same effect. And you want to be able to hear how it sounds when you, I guess, bypass all of them. I guess the quickest way that I can think of is just to make a dummy track. I just make a track here that replaces all of these. Let me do that. Let's send this here to the input. And then this one, this one, this one, and this one goes away. And then from here we go to the tracks. So this goes here to 4.3. It goes here to 4.3. I guess this is a workaround, but it doesn't really bypass the plugins. It just removes the input signal, which I guess it does the same thing for here. So that's okay. And then here into 4.3. This, of course, oh, it needs to happen post effects so that it's always here, and this post effects, and then I just turn this down. So this will be kick sidechain. Right now what I'm doing, by the way, is I'm sidechaining to all of my kicks, so even to this stuff. I'm not sure if that's desirable. If not, I can just change the input from this one to this track over here. It's currently sidechaining to the snare. Hello? What? What? Ah, this has to maybe be outside of its folder. Okay. So now does it sidechain to the kick drum like I wanted to? Yes, perfect. It will also sidechain, as I said, to this stuff here. That might help to keep those transients also a little bit nicer in there. Global modulation. Yeah, that would be a way to fix this, I guess. But I guess for now, we do have it. Because I would be able to... No, because we're doing it post FX. We want it to be post fader. We just don't want this to send to the master then. Which I think you can do through the routing matrix. Kick sidechain, I don't want this to go to drums group. Right? Yeah. Kick sidechain, let's... Oh, it's set to -infinity, yeah. Okay. Let's turn off the routing matrix again. Sorry. Put this back up. Now we still should have our sidechaining. Let me just open up mDynamics. And if I now go in here, I should be able to turn on and off the sidechaining. Wait. Am I sending the snare somewhere? I have to go back again. I should probably keep this temporarily on the second monitor. Why is the snare triggering the sidechaining? It is the snare, right? How can I see the other tracks that are coming into here? Routing for this track. Again, I would do the routing matrix. I go into here. So we're routing one thing in there. And that's it. As you can see, it's triggering, it's getting triggered by the snare. Or not even. If I mute the snare, it's still doing it. What else is going in here? Is it just that one, or is this happening to all of them? Because if I mute the kick going in, there's nothing happening on the sidechain thing. So now, our main sidechain shouldn't get... Yet it still looks like there's a snare there. Something is going into this track, into track 3 and 4. Yet nothing is going into this track, into 3 and 4. Or is it because something is going in here, the offbeat plug, and it's staying in there? Ah, can that be the case? So if I turn off the offbeat plug, now the sidechaining is not, or now that thing shouldn't be reacting to anything. Okay, so that means the following. The channel 3 and 4 shouldn't go out from here. I only want channel 1 and 2 to go out from this track. How do I do that? So that's this one over here. Let me quickly go back to the mixer. How do I turn down this track 3 and 4 over here in this channel? I still want it to go into this channel and trigger the sidechaining that is on here, but I don't want it to advance from this channel. Sidechains on Melda can be tricky in Reaper, I've been told. Maybe check if audio is really going out, check sends. Yeah, so what is happening, I think I know the issue. I am also sidechaining over here. Maybe what I should do is set this to 5 and 6. And then hope that this... No. Okay, what I can do now is I can do this. Okay, so that is working. And now going in here. We don't have anything in there. Perfect, exactly what I want. Okay, so now if I turn the kick back on, we have our normal sidechaining and it should just be working. And now we would be able to hear the difference between sidechaining and non-sidechaining to see what that does to our to all of our tracks. And I can sidechain even more from there because I can just pick more stuff from this sidechain track. I might add like a sidechain trigger somewhere here inside of the template, because this is very useful to have if this turns out that it really enhances the track. I like that. It is bringing out the transient a lot more. I can definitely hear a difference in here, and I like what I'm hearing now. With the very short and fairly strong sidechaining that we have set up, I think I'm doing like 4 dB of gain reduction, I believe, on there. So not even that much, I think. 5 dB of gain reduction for a sidechain isn't really that much. It's not even halving the waveform size, like the signal size. So that's good. It's still like a very subtle effect, but it just brings out transients more. Okay? So now I'm happy with the overall level of the kick and bass, which is really what triggered this issue. The bass, to be honest, it's just doing its thing. It doesn't really need to peak through with the bass, right? The transient of the bass. I don't really care about the transient of the bass because at this point all of the drums are playing. So there's already high frequency stuff happening on top of that, indicating the rest of the rhythm. You guys can also hear the difference, I guess. What I'll quickly do though is I'll copy over the mastering plugins. That is a fair comparison. So that's the original. You can hear that there's a very big difference in how it comes through. But I'll play the whole thing during the break so that you can hear the old version, and then we'll continue mixing. There's like a few more points that I need to do. But overall, I think we're getting there. I think we're getting to a nice, balanced track here. So I'll be right back, and once the track is finished playing, we'll just continue.
food is in the social aspect, where you get to meet people and play them a game and have a fun, competitive game. You do the best you can, but if you don't win, you won anyway. Because when you lose, you win too. Because if you're paying attention, you learn stuff.
Believe it, believe it, believe it, even if you don't believe. Play the game. Believe, believe.
Okay, so that was the old mix. That was the production mix, the production stage. And for those that are just joining in, we're currently working on the actual mix, so the final mix of the project. And you'll be able to hear that it's going to sound a lot different here. It sounds a bit deeper, maybe a little bit too deep listening to it now. Like it sounds a little bit more upfront in the production. I am a fan of the new kick though. It sounds like a very big improvement. What could happen is also that the production mix is now louder. I did just copy over the mastering. I didn't compensate for anything, so. It looks more dynamic when it's playing like this. So I definitely think that it's now a little bit too loud if you're doing that comparison. Let's get volume in here. This is always a good thing to do, to just check your work and maybe go like -2 so that we don't. Of a click when switching. That makes the comparison a little bit annoying to do. But I think I like, with the reduced volume, I think I like the old mix more. Or the newer mix more, sorry. That would be a shame if I spent 7-8 hours working on the mix. Even more. How long have we been spending on it? Like over 10 hours now? Altogether, with all 4 streams that we did. It would be annoying if I concluded that the old mix was better. There's a few more things that I need to do. We'll have a look at the top loop thing that we just did, where we separated that top loop into 2 parts. This part over here. There's a few places where it starts to overpower. Here, for example. This snare bolt sounds terrible. What if I just cut that out? How to fix terrible sounding samples? Just cut them out. Here we can do the same thing. I can just remove this from here in the build. I think this is getting a little bit too loud here, so I'm just going to tone that down a bit. Always cut out a little bit more so that you make sure that there's no like small clicks and stuff like that happening. There's another buildup where this is also a problem over here. So mainly this one, we want to remove that here. Here it sounds really strange. The pitcher hats, we can remove those as well. From here, because that's just like an added texture. We don't need to have that everywhere either. Here and here. The snare sounds so strange. I guess it's because I'm pitch shifting with M Transformer. I have since stopped doing that. I do also have another snare built in here, I believe, somewhere. Build snares, but it's not in here. It's in the other one, I think. Or it's this stuff. Yeah, so that doesn't play in the drop. Let's see what happens if we mute the snare here. Is this now a rough transition? That works. The only thing I would do to make this a little bit better is just add some volume automation here. That just quickly goes down on these last few snares here, because I feel like it's not going down enough on those. Okay, so starting from here to here, we just go down by a couple dB. Here you can see the clicks happening, so we'll remove that, and that. I like what we're getting there. That sounds nice. So this one is fixed here. Going to check the other one as well, which is over here. I like the snares in there. I'm just going to turn them down a bit in this case. Maybe 4.5 here as well. 4.8, sorry. And I'll get rid of percussions and drum loop in here, so that we don't get like any clicks from that. We don't really need all of that stuff, right? So this should be okay. I might have it go back up here, actually. Okay, so now I'm going to try something that is really not mixing, and that is to take these samples. I need to make it shorter, like that. Let's give myself a little bit of space. Hello, can I? Oh yeah, you can have overlapping samples inside of Reaper. I forgot that you can do that. Yeah, but if we now do this, I still want the transient, please. And then I'll just fade them out over here. Sidechaining. Ah, okay. We can fix that. Snare, last shown this thing over here. I'll just have it fade out over this period of time here, because it's really meant to just have the main transient of the kick come through, and the main transient of the kick isn't here, so that doesn't matter. Okay, I like that. What I would want to do is a filter transition. So Simpleton, we're just going to high pass it with a bit of resonance like that. Filter frequency. There we are. This guy. So from here to here, we'll leave that normal. And this just goes up like a lot. That's a really strange transition effect here. That's kind of what I want, I think. There was a transient error there. Normally I don't do these kind of things. As I said, I don't like to do productions and stuff like that. But it should be good now. Okay, we have one more, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 points more to do. Drop these top loop things I've already done. So this thing and this thing should be good. We'll just have a quick check though. So that is this one over here. Okay, that does sound nice. Have fun going live. Nice. I'll send people to you after my stream is over. So maybe what you could do if you're going live, send me like your link, your live link, so that I can drop it in the chat once I'm finished streaming, and then people can go hang out over there if you're still live. I'll probably do like an hour and a half still. So yeah, once you go live, send me the link so that I can check if you're still live when my stream ends, and then I can just send my people over to your stream and they can enjoy themselves there if they want to watch more stuff. Okay. Vocal, I want minus 2 dB on which vocal again was it? I think this one.
Being a player, to me, that's one thing. It's a fun game. But with a fun game.
Is it that one or this one?
Whatever you want to do, believe it. Whatever you want to do, believe it, believe it, believe it. Even if you don't believe it, play the game and believe it.
I like that. So the vocal minus 2 dB, we have fixed that. Sidechain synth to glitch, that is in regards to the synth that sits in here. If you remember, we have the glitch separated here. So you want to send this thing to here. To here. Into 3 and 4. Okay. So then over here we can... This isn't doing any side chaining already, right? No. Perfect. We can set up a side chaining for that. Okay. What I want also is there to be more splash on this part over here. this has like a wash out. I'll make another track here. Strong impact high, and we'll send this track over here to its main input, and then we can EQ out all of the low stuff that we don't need. What I'm essentially trying to do here is just make like a very long, washed out, high frequency mess. So that kind of tone is what I'm going for. And then I can put a big reverb on there. Huge space, cathedral. We'll focus on the higher frequencies again. Perfect. Something like that, and we can mix that in. I just want it here though, so volume. We'll have that before, so that we have an input volume to this. It's always going to go... Does this not go to minus infinity? That's annoying. The V5 is here. Doesn't seem to do anything different. Does this have an input gain that goes all the way down? Toolbar, meters, nothing in here. There's a normal gain that goes minus plus 12. I have to go in here. Volume, output. 0. I don't believe these go. Aha, here. I do want this to be fully wet. Soloing this, we shouldn't hear anything now. Perfect. Okay. So I can remove that volume banner thing, and then I can turbo vert volume. You cannot automate this? Oh my god. I guess we'll have to do it with minus 60. I mean, that's not really a big problem. Minus 60 you won't hear anything. So it's not like that's going to be an issue. Hello? Volume. I wonder why that wasn't working there. Okay, so this is just input gain, and it's just controlling it so that it doesn't do it here.
Because when you lose your link too, because if you're paying attention, you learn stuff.
Honestly, I want it longer. Fully wet. Longest as it can go. I like that. I'll turn it down a little bit though. Maybe like 4 dB. Zen Lion, welcome, welcome. How are you doing? We have this. Open hat tighter. I want to make the open hat sound less reverberated and more upfront in the mix. So that's this bad boy here. We shall gate this one. Exactly what I wanted to. Perfect. Chababel, welcome to the stream as well. Hope you're doing well. Open hat tighter. We're done there. Riser drop 3.4 to 3.5 too loud. Okay. That is all the way over here somewhere. There is a riser that is too loud. I think it's both of them, maybe. It's mainly this one. I like what we did to that hat, the open hat. It sounds much better now. I'm getting a little bit of a cold, so what I'm quickly going to do is I'm quickly going to run to my kitchen to turn on the heating here, and then I'll be back. Sorry. If it were always like this, I don't know what that means. Sorry. With the delay and stuff like that, it's hard to have a conversation. I think I mentioned this before. Once you realize that I talk about something, it already happened like a minute ago for me, and then you need to start typing, you need to send it and stuff like that, so that it takes like 2 minutes for your message about the subject to actually reach me. Maybe not 2 minutes, like 1.5 minutes. So I'm sorry if I were saying something that is relevant to what you were saying, but I don't remember it. The mix on that hat. The mix on the hat, the hat sounded much different from the beginning. I think I quickly toggled it before. Yeah, we made it a lot beefier in here, and in the production it sounded like this. In the production, it's barely noticeable, actually. That's nice. I may have something for the next feedback stream, depends if I can get it polished quickly. I also have a DJ gig on Saturday, very nice. Need to prepare for that. Next feedback stream is going to be on the 7th, because next week, the 31st, I'll be home celebrating Easter with my parents. So I won't be there. So we will still have a lot of time to work on it and to make something cool, but I can't wait for you to submit something. That's nice. I haven't heard your music in a while. Let's hear how the music school is treating you. How it's helping you, I guess. We're through all of the points that we had originally set up. I guess I'm gonna do another listen through, and then I'll judge if this is going to be the final mix of it. We're still listening to it inside of a temporary master, so keep that in mind. I will remaster it, so small details and the overall tonal change is still going to happen. I just have to see if I'm happy with the overall balance between all of the elements and that kind of stuff, and the separation of the elements and the gluing of the elements, that stuff.
that's one thing. It's a fun game. But where the real fruit is in the social aspect, where you get to meet people and play them a game and have a fun, competitive game. You do the best you can, but if you don't win, you won anyway. Because when you lose, you win too. Because if you're paying attention, you learn stuff.
Okay, so that's the last listening section that I'm going to do. I did write down a whole bunch of different points. I'm quickly going to... It doesn't really matter, actually, that I do that. There's just one where it matters. And that's going to be this one over here. Because this... Oh, this one, yeah, stops here. Here. You can probably see that it's going to go up until this point. Ah, no, it fades out nicely. I'll, just for security, just give it a little bit more fade out towards the end there, so that I'm absolutely certain that towards the end of the track it just completely fades out. I do think that I need to, for the rendering purposes, move all of these tracks back. Is there a way that I can do that quickly? Yes. Perfect. Is there a way that I can select the tracks quickly? Doesn't seem to be the case. Or can I do... Yes. Oh, I love this DAW. It's just amazing to work in. Okay, so now we have everything fading to 0 here. Just to check, we have no volume on the rest, which is exactly what you want. You just want this one delay tail that is going out for that. So there's some small things that we still need to do. Mainly one of the things here, for example, is turn the flute up a little bit. So this is going to go to like 10 dB. I like that. That means that this is done. Mini break drop 3 cleanup. That is going to be over here.
Whatever you want to do, believe it, believe it, believe it. Even if you don't believe it, play the game of belief. Whatever you want to do, believe it, believe it, believe it. Even if you don't believe, play the game of belief.
Okay, so that is properly done. Drop 3.1 snare release lower, yes. One of the things that I noticed while I was listening here, and I think you guys can maybe relate to this stuff. When I'm listening, I often hear the track how it is in my memory, and I'm not necessarily judging the exact mix that I have in front of me. To give you an example of what I mean here, I remember these snares being much louder. And even now, I'm not entirely sure that I like the lower frequencies that it brings, and that may be the reason why I have it fairly quiet in the current mix. Like the low fundamental of it. I might just filter this out completely like this. Still getting errors here. I hope the connection is still doing okay. It's looking fine on my OBS, but it's saying in YouTube that it doesn't get enough data. Okay, so that's better. What I meant to say by this is I remember these snares being very prominent in the production. I would need to turn it off here, of course.
Paying attention, you learn stuff.
Right, you can hear it kind of coming in here. That lower harmonic, you can already hear it coming in here, and then here the snare XD just exists. We mixed it out for this mix over here. Like it's in this part, it's much quieter and it's much more in the background. But when I was listening, I could almost imagine the snares being there, even though I couldn't really hear them.
Paying attention, you learn stuff.
Right, you cannot hear the snares in here. This isn't in there. By the way, the volume. There's a volume difference in here. We need to balance this out a bit for the transition, and I'm going to just turn this up so that we can hear how it sounds like if they are there in the mix.
Paying attention, you learn stuff. Paying attention, you learn stuff.
Now it sounds a bit better to me, with the snares being a little bit more prominent, although we might have them a bit too much. Because they really finalize the build-up. They are really sitting here. So they are an important element in the mix. I just didn't like in the production mix how they were sitting in here. So I really honed down on that, and I really turned it down on that. And what we've done now is we've just fixed the whole problem by just completely removing the clashing area, the part that we didn't like. So if I just disable this particular band here, you can hear that now it's going to sit terribly in the mix because that fundamental is coming through.
Paying attention, you learn stuff.
I guess one of the issues that it has as well is that timing-wise, it doesn't 100% align with the kick speed-up effect that we have over here. I had to make this in a really wonky way because I wanted the kick and bass to speed up. I essentially had to speed up 1 bar, and it's not just the kick speeding up, it's the kick and bass. So 1 beat is speeding up. I said 1 bar, but it's a beat, right? So a quarter note. And that meant that for here to have snares play, I needed to take 2 snares, 2 eighth notes, and then speed that up. And for some reason, the timing just doesn't 100% align. So that's an effect that I don't really like, and that is one of the effects that we're trying to remove here. By just not having that low fundamental in there, you can hear how it really sits back in the mix. But even now that we're analyzing this, I sometimes just in my mind imagine the low fundamental to still be there. Because I've listened to this track hundreds and hundreds of times, right? Throughout the whole production stage, throughout the early mixing stage, before this decision was made. And now it's really hard to adapt my mind to the actual thing that I'm hearing, as opposed to how I remember the track to be. And I think this is a really important point, and that's why I wanted to make it, so that I can put it also in conversations with Projector, because I want to talk about these things. It is I cannot really tell you how to do it, but you need to, when you're listening, you need to really listen to the thing that is there, and you need to forget all of the things that you know about the production. That's why it's so good to have somebody else mix your track. That's why you get so good results usually when another mixing engineer is mixing your track. Not just because they're another mixing engineer with a lot of experience, right? Especially if you're a beginner and you don't really know what you're doing. The other guy is just going to be a better mixing engineer than you. But they're also not going to be biased by any of the things that you already know about the track. And that is, I think, equally as important, especially if you yourself do know mixing to an extent. Like, for example, I would say that I'm not a great mixing engineer. I don't know, I'm not, I wouldn't call myself great at mixing or particularly good at mixing, but I know what I'm doing, right? So for me, I do know where I want to get, if I want to get somewhere with a track, how to get there. And that is essentially what you need to do when you're mixing. You just say, okay, I identify this problem, and then I try to solve the problem. I know how to solve problems. The problem is, sometimes I identify problems that were in the production and that I remember, but aren't actually there in the mix that I'm currently hearing. And that's really hard to get yourself out of, and it is something that you need to do, because otherwise you're trying to solve problems that aren't there. And then you can overcompensate for something, then you can try to solve something that isn't there, and you're damaging the audio file, you're removing too much maybe of a frequency, stuff like that. So it is really hard to try to not have that kind of behavior. But just being aware of that does really help, that you try. And that's also the reason, by the way, when I'm doing listening sections, that I'm partially like closing my eyes. I don't want to be looking at the project. I just want to be hearing the music. Because if you look at the project, you know exactly where the timeline is going to be. And you can say like, oh, I remember this element that is about to come up, right? If I see the playback is approaching this thing over here, I can start to prepare for that thing being there, even if it isn't in the current iteration of the mix. That's really important in my opinion, to not do that. So that's why when I'm listening to the mix, like on the full playthrough, I try to, for one, I try to zoom out sometimes, so that you don't have you cannot really see all of the elements. It might even be best to just move this whole thing up here, so that it kind of just covers the majority of the elements, right? So that you literally cannot see anything. But I just solve that by just closing my eyes, and anytime I do need to remember something, I look away. I have my thing over here where I write down the things that I need to remember, and then I close my eyes again, and I don't really focus on the project visually when I'm listening for the problems that I'm trying to identify. So that is done. Drop 1.3 snare thing. Yes, we need to change the release timing of this snare over here because it's too long. So for those that remember, aha. Ah, the gate is turned off here. What if I just leave it on? Okay, then it's too much. Okay, how do I fix it then? I would have another gate, I suppose, for this particular part. That's not ideal, having two gates doing the same thing essentially. Okay. Trim, last shown. This bypass boy over here is going to be always off, but in this spot. See, now we again have to scroll here, and then we make the switch here when the snare's not playing. Okay. Okay, I want this vocal to be a bit lower. I feel like with it lower volume, it's hard to understand what he is saying. Maybe I can balance it a bit more towards the airy frequencies that indicate speech. Right, so these frequencies over here.
From somewhere else.
The S sound in here needs to be louder. So I'm going to have to render that out. That does mean that I still need to render new files here. Brain vocal. I'll do that tonight. I'll do that off stream. Because that's very annoying work, having to do all of that. I have another thing that I need to render out, which is the sequences that have a little bit too much reverb on them. We talked about this earlier on in the stream. We had some reverberating sequences, those dual sequences, right? So this thing needs to be rendered out again, and then these bad boys over here. No, not those, these. Because this one has too much reverb, at least. Right, that is a little bit too much. So I'll have to render out that one. I might need to render out this one as well. Yeah, I'm going to do this one as well. I'm going to lower the I guess they're going through the same reverb because I'm probably reverberating those on the group. Because in the production they were they were also going through a group together. So there's probably a reverb on there, and if I lower that, it should be okay. Those are the only things that I need to render out for this mix to actually be finished completely. We do have some more points though. Progressive drop vocal takeover. What that means is that in the progressive drop, we have over here a vocal. I want everything else to stop playing, so mainly this sequence needs to go. Before it was like this. It still had the wow kind of thing in there. I don't really want that. Maybe I'll keep the little bit in here. Yeah, that's okay. There was another thing that I wanted to do here, which is the hat, turning that up. Now the hat and the snare are more unified, because before it felt like the hat was too quiet for the snare. So you would have like the hat, the snare, and then the hat, right? You get like check, check, check. And to be honest, with your percussions, you all want them to be at least a little bit balanced. There's obviously going to be differences in the levels and the kind of importance that they have. Like a snare is always going to be more important than a closed hat, for example, especially the faster ones, the 16-note closed hats that you normally hear on your rolling bass line. But you do want them to be unified. So for that reason, I do want them to be a little bit louder, because it felt like it was kind of, the groove was kind of, okay, the kick is coming in, then the hat goes lower, and then the snare, and then the hat goes lower again. Whereas I want this to be, especially because we're on a sliding bass line, right? Something that doesn't necessarily have a groove to it. At least not a groove that is exactly identical to the hat stuff over here. It interacts with it, but sometimes it doesn't, right? With some of the steps. I do want that groove to be unified and it not jumping up and down too much. A little bit is nice, because then you get some bounce, you get some movement. So I think we struck a nice balance right now. It still has that the snare feels a little bit higher in terms of its priority, I guess, which volume, frequency, stereo wave, all of that stuff is kind of taken into account if I say priority. I don't know if that's a good term to use though. Let me know if that's like a clear term when I talk about priority in terms of mixing. Because I do realize that I may not have explained exactly what I mean when I say the word priority. Because it's different from volume, right? Like volume is just volume. Priority takes into account the frequency that it uses, the stereo wave that something has, the time overlap that it has with another element. If two elements overlap in time, then the priority is going to be much more ambiguous than if one plays and then another plays. So for example, the priority between the kick and bass is fairly well defined, in that the kick plays in the beat, in the starting point here, and then the bass line comes in the empty spots in between, right? Whereas if you have a drum loop like this stuff over here, this thing, for example, plays on top of the kick, and this thing as well, and stuff in here as well. So there's a little bit less, I guess, defined priority between them, or separation between them, which means that you would need to think more about, okay, which thing is more important in terms of the priority. And you can solve those things with volume, you can solve those things with frequency. In this case, we're solving that mainly with frequency, because the kick is low frequency stuff mostly, and the rest of this is very high frequency stuff. So that's kind of what I mean by priority. I hope that that's a good explainer of the concept. I have some interesting video coming up. I'm not going to spoil it, but it will also include a little discussion about these kind of thoughts, and how it's going to be focused on beginners more. So it will be it stems from my feedback stream and kind of the mistakes that I hear in the feedback stream a lot. And it's not just going to be mixing, also production, but it's partially going to cover this topic of priority, and mainly how do you separate things and how do you have the mindset to listen to it in this kind of way. Because a lot of producers / mixing engineers or beginners, musicians, when they're tackling the mix, they're trying to mix for tricks, is like an expression that I like to use for that, in that they have seen this cool thing online on a video, but they're not thinking about the overall structure of the track and the overall, to quote it again, the overall priorities between the elements in the tracks. And that is really what is important inside of mixing. And all of the tricks, you can apply that after you have established all of your priorities. Tricks are cool, don't get me wrong. I'm using a whole bunch of different cool little things that I'm doing to make one sound a little bit better, but I'm only doing that once the priority is established. And you guys will have known that if you've watched the first two streams. We started by adding all of the individual elements, determining their volume, maybe doing a little bit of preliminary EQing, And now we're trying to get all of the details of the mix to sit right. And there might still be priority things that we need to do, like for example, just what we did with the hats. But the main priority, the overarching picture of the whole mix has already been established just by the way that we started adding things. Pad break volume 1 intro lower. That is over here. Here there's a pad which I really like. I want that to be in there. But it feels like right now, here it gets a little bit too exciting. This thing over here, I really like this sound, but for stuff that is still playing on top of the drop, it's a little bit too much. So I'm going to go volume, and we'll probably turn it down by 5 dB-ish. What we can do is just slowly have it come in up until this point. I really like how it fades out into the next drop. So that's what I want to maintain, but I might go like this. That's what I want. Okay, perfect. Hi, what software are you using to mix? This is called Reaper. It's a DAW specifically designed for mixing. I think I've gone over this quite a lot, but obviously you're new here. So what it does, it just allows you to import long WAV files, and many of them too. And you won't have any problems with the playback. There's some black magic going on under the hood. We already talked about this as well during the stream. About how specifically something like this would work with like analysis files and only loading into memory the part of the track that may actually have to play something. So all of this silence is maybe discarded inside of memory. So it uses some tricks that allow you to import even 300 WAV files of 12 minutes long, which would be like 25 gigabytes or 30 gigabytes worth of data. And it just allows you to play, and it just works. Inside of Ableton, Ableton would immediately shit the bed and crash and just die. And it wouldn't work in any way. But Reaper just allows you to do that. And as you can see, it also allows you to load up a massive amount of plugins on top of those files. And it continues to work, so it's great. What it does, I don't exactly know. But however it works, it just works. And that's the reason why I use it. It's $60, by the way. So if you want to use this yourself and pick it up and experiment with mixing, then it's really good to do that. You can also produce in it. It has MIDI capabilities and everything. So you can just load in virtual instruments if you want as well. There are people that I know that produce in it as well. But personally, I haven't really tried that. I just use it for mixing. And it's just really nice. The way that it's laid out, the way that you have all of the sends available here, all of the different sends that I'm using, as you can see, it's just massively powerful for mixing. Okay, so pad break volume has been done. The ARP drop 1.5 intro volt 2 -2. Yes. It may sound cryptic what I'm saying, but to me, all of the notes that I'm writing down make sense. Essentially, the way that the element is introduced over here, this bit is too loud. So yeah, that's starting from there. I essentially want to lower the volume probably from like here Stop playing, please. I'll have it -2 from -8 here. Feel like in here we can give it a little bit more impact too, having it go down again. Of course, not so far. This needs to go in here, and then this can go, yeah, right about there. Nice. What it now does more is reset on the melody. Because we're going down in volume, this first note is going to have much more impact. It felt kind of like the melody was already starting like here-ish, or maybe even here, when it already became like very loud. So now we have it starting more over here in this particular spot. And it just adds a little bit of more, a little bit more impact when that kick hits. So that's nice. It's a better transition that way. So that's done. We want pad -2 in intro. So that's going to be this pad over here, the one that we recently turned up. Has to go down a little bit more again. This one over here. -2 dB is what I said. And then the final thing is the ARP here in the intro. This bad boy going down to this maybe. Perfect. It never draws focus. It's just a little bit of extra texture on top of it. So that's exactly what I want. Okay. Which means that drop 3, snare release lower. We've done that as well. We've done this. We've done this. I think I'm happy with the current mix. I still need to render out those two things, which I'll do after the stream. But overall, it's done. It's finished. So for those that are unfamiliar or are unaware, we still need to render out these two files because they have a little bit too much reverb on them. And then there was another file here because the S sound towards the end of the vocal isn't clear enough. It cannot really be distinguished through its own delay and reverb.
My brain is from somewhere else.
It sounds like it's saying my brain is from somewhere else, where it should say my brain is from somewhere else, right? It should just finish the phrasing. So that is something else that I need to do. Funnily enough, it's something else. Okay, so anyway, that means that for the mixing part, I'm pretty happy with that, minus those 3 files that I need to re-render. But even if I re-render those 3 files, they should fit nicely into the mix. These might need a little bit of extra reverb once they get back, but just a different kind of flavor, different kind of texture of it. So yeah, what that means for us today is that I'm going to end the stream over here. I've been live for 3.5 hours, so I did a nice bit of work. Use a re-esser. I wish I could just put it in higher and maybe even edit the file, but this is the annoyance when it's okay. So what I'm doing is I'm rendering it with the delay and reverb on, and I could just, if there was no delay and reverb, I could just go in the file and boost the S sound that sits somewhere in here, right? It would be like, oh, can I not select it? It would be from like here to here is where it plays. Here, this little S bit that plays right before the kick hits again. I might even need to warp it, thinking about it now, because I don't really want that S to be exactly on the kick, maybe. I'll figure that out. But the benefit of the reverb and delay already being present in the production phase is that your production mix or your production is going to sound much more like an actual Psytrance track. Because you can imagine what a Psytrance track would sound like if there was no delay and reverb on there whatsoever, right? So if I could just EQ it or do something like that, I would. But I need to go back into the production mix because I don't actually want to change anything about the delay and reverb that is also playing there. And is also in the same frequencies because it's delaying and reverbing everything, right? Or maybe just borrow an S from another work. From another word sometimes works. I'm literally just going to go into the production and that S sound that is already present there, I'm just going to take that and I'm just going to boost its volume. And that's going to fix the problem for me. And then I re-render and it's done. So it's like a very short task. It just needs to happen. And I cannot really do that in here, as I said, because the delay and reverb are on top of it. And I don't actually want to boost that delay and reverb. In fact, listening to it now, I might also turn the delay and reverb down on this one a little bit more. So that the vocal comes out a little bit more in general. Yeah, it's better to fix these kind of things in the original file, in the original production, because then you get the highest quality as well. I can probably, as you suggest, take an S from somewhere else. Again, the word else. It's funny that we need to fix that one because it comes up so much. But yeah, I could probably just take an S from a different part of the phrasing or a different word or even a different vocal entirely. But that's always going to lose some quality to just taking the vocal that you already have, that is already present in the production project and that you can render again and just boosting that S sound in there, rendering it again, and then re-importing that into the project. Okay, so that's going to be it for today. I'm going to stop streaming for now. I hope you guys enjoyed it and that you learned a thing or two from somewhere else. Yes, exactly. I don't want it to say that. So that's the whole reason why we're doing this whole thing, that I need to render it out. Vocals, I've said this many times, they just need to be clear in the mix. If you're trying to tell a story with your vocals, it needs to be clear what story you're telling. So the whole phrase is important to that story, even the last syllable, something like this. And if you have a vocal in there that is deliberately not telling a story in its mix, you need to make it clear to the listener that it's not part of the storytelling vocals. What that means is that I hear a lot of people that use like very glitched up vocals and stuff like that, and then they mix it very quiet. What you're going to do then is you're going to be sitting here when the listener is listening to the track. By the way, the listener doesn't know what the production sounded like before you glitched up that vocal. So they don't really know what the vocal is supposed to sound like. They cannot also solo the vocal in a production, right? The listener of the final product will never hear the vocal like this.
My brain is from somewhere else.
Now it's clear that it's saying my brain is from somewhere else. But try hearing it in the mix. Even what we're doing now, listening to the vocal solo and then listening to it in the mix, is technically wrong because the listener wouldn't be able to do that. But you can hear it says, my brain is from somewhere else. And that sounds really off. It needs to say, my brain is from somewhere else, because that makes sense in terms of a phrase. And the listener would need to be able to hear that. And if the vocal isn't actually part of the storytelling, you want to be able to let the listener know, like, hey, this vocal, you don't have to take it, you don't have to actively listen to what it's saying, because I'm just glitching it up, I'm just messing with it, it's pitching up and down quite a lot, so you don't have to worry about this vocal. If you put it very low in the mix, the listener is going to say, like, hey, there's a vocal there. Can I hear what it's saying? Is it telling me something important? Is this something that I need to listen to? Why can I not hear what this vocal is saying? Why is this vocal so messed up? Right? Because that is what happens when you glitch a vocal. You can no longer tell what it's saying. Maybe you're chopping it up, maybe you're rearranging it, maybe you're, as I said, pitching it up and down, doing crazy stuff. all of that needs to be clear to the listener that the vocal is something that they can ignore. And in the mix, it needs to be present enough in the mix that the listener can say, oh, wait, this vocal is glitched up. This vocal is messed up. It's not telling me anything. I can disregard it as a part of the storytelling. Because psychologically, we're naturally drawn to other people that are speaking. Even if you have a conversation in a busy bar, you may have heard this, or you may experience this. If the bar is very loud and there's music playing and it's very busy, and your friend comes up screaming to you, you do have a capability of kind of isolating what your friend is saying to you. That's why when 120 decibels is playing in a club and your friend is screaming into your ear at 80 decibels, you can still hear what he is saying, right? Which is, if you think about it, it doesn't really make sense. If the music is a lot louder than the vocal, you would expect the vocal to be drawn out. But we have this natural tendency to focus on things that sound like speaking, essentially. And that is also what you take into account when mixing, especially when mixing vocals, but also the stuff around that, even when you're arranging, that you don't put a lot of stuff on top of the vocal, so that when you're going into mixing, you're having a really hard time in general for the vocal to shine through, because it's not standing, because there's so many elements playing. If there's a lot of different elements playing and a vocal, it's really hard to kind of get the vocal in a mix in a way that it's actually understandable whether it's glitchy or not, essentially. So that is how you mix vocals. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. I'm going to end the stream now. I hope that you guys enjoyed. And as I said, I hope you learned something. This is as close to the final mix as I can get today without rendering out those other 3 files, which I'll do right now. And then this is going to be prepped for release and probably release in maybe a month and a half, something like that. So keep an eye out for it. And I hope to see you guys next time, which is going to be the 7th of April, because I'm going to go away for Easter, take a little bit of a break, go away from it all, and just enjoy myself for a couple of days. Okay, that's going to be it. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and as I said, see you the 7th. Bye-bye.